What's up, everyone? It's listener questions live on Friday afternoon for some, Friday morning for others. Good to have all of you with us. John rocking the Burrow Babies lid. How you doing, John?
Yeah, shout out to our friend Zim. It's Friday at noon or 1, I guess. I'm drinking Ryan Guy's Mathlete. Just the perfect Friday lunch hour beer to drink. We're about to answer some questions.
I love it. What style? What style of beer is that?
It's an IPA, excuse me.
Okay.
Pretty flavorful, but it's only like 4%, so it's like not even a beer.
Okay. That's good, though. That's good.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're getting your weekend started off right. It's a little early for me, maybe a little later, but I'm jealous of you there. That sounds pretty good. Let's get to some questions, John. I'm going to let you bat lead off this time around. You've been a very busy guy. By the way, for those who do not know, there's a really rad article on CincyJungle.com. John Sheeran, he talked about it a little bit on our Wednesday show. He put it up and worked together in conjunction with Jake Liskow of Locked On Bengals, talking salary cap, etc. So go check that one out. And if you haven't yet, shameless self-plug, go check out our Wednesday show with Andre Parada, because it's kind of salary cap 101, and you're going to get a lot of valuable info there in terms of what's going to come up for free agency potentially for the Cincinnati Bengals. That being said, John, bat lead off for us if you would.
Yeah, definitely go check out that article. And we're going to start, I guess, with a free agency type question. We had a question coming from Twitter via @FanaticCincy. He's asking, I believe it was PFF analyst Anthony Triesch that said it makes more sense to lock up William Jackson III opposed to Carl Lawson. Do you believe that is more of a positional value thing, or wins above replacement thing, or something else? Both would be nice. Do you see both back? I guess we can just go ahead and start with that part of the question.
The final part, but do you see both back? I definitely see one back. I think it's very conceivable that both can be back. I'd like to think that the Bengals would use the franchise tag on one and then probably be able to extend the other. I would hope. I don't know where either of those guys' kind of mindsets are at in terms of direction of the franchise, direction of the defense, and based on, they had a relationship likely with Carlos Dunlap and kind of saw what's going on there. They may feel that Geno Atkins is on the way out. Maybe they're close to him and they're just not liking the direction. I don't know. That's complete conjecture. Maybe they are liking the direction of things. I don't know. But I'd like to think they are able to at least hang on to these guys for at least 2021, maybe lock up one long term and use the franchise tag on the other. In terms of the question above it about the value of position and which player to keep, I don't know that I fully – I think both guys are valuable, but I don't know that I fully agree with the assessment that William Jackson III is in a corner is more valuable than an edge rusher, especially just both those positions are going to be big needs for the Bengals this year if they end up losing a lot of the guys that they have set to hit unrestricted free agency. But I don't know. I'm kind of on the boat of get effective edge rushers and get after the quarterback, especially in this division.
So I've been pretty firm in this stance for the past month or so. I think the Bengals are going to do whatever they can to bring back Carl Lawson at least for one season. If they have to use the franchise tag, they will. A good friend of the show, James Rapine, reported on allbengals.com that the Bengals are willing to use the franchise tag if they can't reach a long-term deal with Carl Lawson, which is what they're going to try to do for the next 2 weeks. So I think there's more confidence that they're going to do something like that than it is with William Jackson. William Jackson's situation, it just really seems a lot like the Kevin Zeiler one, whereas they value William Jackson, but not even close to what he could get on the open market, which is why the Bengals never really offered Kevin Zeiler a legitimate contract extension. They just allowed him to test the free agency waters. He ended up with Cleveland for like $60 million. I think something like that is going to happen with William because they're going to invest in Carl Lawson, and they're probably just going to choose one or the other. And it just comes down to they picked Trey Waynes last year in free agency. They could have extended William Jackson after he had a couple solid seasons. After that 2017 season, they sought better fit to invest that in Trey. And I just don't see them signing William to a deal that reflects what Trey got after they just signed Trey Waynes last year. I think they want to see what he can do. And I think they value Trey Waynes as a high quality cornerback. In regards to the PFF analysis, PFF is great in what they do. And I think one conclusion that they drew from their analysis is that individual cornerbacks can be more valuable than individual pass rushers. And while from year to year, like secondary play is a little bit more volatile than like edge rushing play. I think if you just isolate a singular coverage defender and a singular pass rusher, that singular coverage defender may have more inherent value to him. But if you just compare, I think Carl Lawson and William Jackson, their different profiles, their ages, how, one's comparative upside to the other, and the fact that Williams closing on 30 and Carl Lawson's only 26, I think all those factors kind of tell you that Lawson may just be the more valuable player. But I understand the argument about positional value, and I think that's what Trieste is getting at.
Yeah, and we'll move on here, but I mean, like I said, if either guy bolts, I mean, the well is pretty dry at both position groups. You've got Trey Waynes, thankfully, and hopefully healthy coming back this year. But Mackenzie Alexander is also set to be a free agent. You're hoping that Darius Phillips continues his development then if you do let William Jackson walk. And then, of course, if you let Lawson walk, you're kind of looking at Sam Hubbard and a bunch of kind of what ifs because you let Carlos Dunlap walk. So it's just, either way, it's a risky proposition if they let either guy walk. So I think, at least for the time being, if they're able to at least hang on to both guys for, 21 guy for 2021 and then the other more long term, I mean, that's a win for them, and it just helps them go more BPA in the draft. I'm gonna, just for the sake of time, John, I'm gonna kind of combine a bunch of different questions because they're kind of related. We've got JT in the live YouTube chat. Do you see the Bengals trading for Havenstein or Ramczyk? Both offensive tackles, Havenstein with the Rams and Ramczyk with the Saints, and the Saints are in a real bad way with the salary cap. We had a question from Ron Muir on Twitter, and then another person echoed it in here. Let me see who it was. Nick Harvey Parks talking about Isaiah Wilson. That's kind of an issue there. So I don't know. I guess let's start with Wilson because we've had multiple questions on that, and then we can talk about the other guys. But Wilson, a lot of baggage there. 1 year removed from a first-round pick. I don't like the baggage. I don't like the stuff that's been trickling out, especially recently. But if he can be had for cheap, maybe even he gets cut. I'm kind of like, well, you're in the third year of the Zach Taylor era, and you kind of need to swing for the fences in some of these things and try and grab something that works, especially on the offensive line. If the price tag is cheap, both contract-wise and draft capital-wise, why not? But I understand the baggage.
There's so much here. Honestly, it really comes down with Isaiah Wilson if you were a fan of him in last year's draft. And if you remember, he was the quote-unquote riser, which is total BS anyways. It's completely fabricated based off what media members hear from teams. Like, oh yeah, this guy is apparently Isaiah Wilson was always looked highly upon in NFL personnel's eyes, and then he just started becoming this first round option in mock drafts as like April came on. But I don't remember a lot of people really loving Isaiah Wilson for the majority of the draft process, and all of a sudden he was just this guy that was touted as a first round pick. I didn't really think he was that good of a player and worth that type of a pick. And if you're thinking, okay, this guy was overrated to begin with, and now he's, going down the line here, a DUI in September. He was suspended for violating club rules later in the year. He was on the COVID list like twice. There was a police report about him jumping off a second story, contemplating jumping off a second story balcony, and he was placed on the non-football illness list for personal issues. And now he's tweeting about like he's done with the Titans. Like, this just seems like a situation where you don't do anything, because in all likelihood the Titans are going to get any compensation for this guy and they're going to release him. And if you want to take like a vet minimum flyer on him, that's fine. But committing any draft capital to this dude, I don't see it.
We've got a call coming in. We will get that in just a second here. But the situation with it is, like you said, the baggage is clear, and I like I said, I kind of am in the boat of let's let Zach Taylor kind of swing for the fences a little bit there and see if he can fix the offensive line a little bit. But here's the thing, the caveat to it too, John, is, you listed that all the stuff there. The issue with it is, of course, the quote unquote emphasis on character by Zach Taylor. Now, there's been a lot of examples as to why that has played into that emphasis. There have been a couple of glaring examples that have not played into that emphasis. So I guess my point is in year 3, maybe that's where you maybe bend that a little bit. If Zach Taylor feels that his seat is hot coming into this year, I mean, the team needs to win games. And I don't know that Isaiah Wilson is a guy that's going to come in and provide that for you, even as a a low risk, high reward type of situation. I don't know. I guess I like you. I would prefer if he's cut, maybe you take a flyer on him then, but it's an intriguing option. What about Ramczyk and Havenstein? Are those more viable?
I think Kat Terrell, who used to cover the Bengals, now she covers the Saints, said that a Ramczyk trade would be unlikely for the Saints just for their whole cash purposes and how much they have invested in him. Havenstein's another story. I think you would look at that as like a trade that resembled what the Cordy Glenn trade was back in 2018, where they like give an overall compensation that equals like a third round pick. Paul Daniel of the Athletic outlined what a trade would look like, and the fact that Zach Taylor has worked with Havenstein before with the Rams staff. They know who he is. He has 2 affordable years left on his deal. I think that makes a lot of sense if they're willing to be aggressive about it.
Well, the Bengals need offensive line help for sure, and that may be one of the routes they go is a trade or a flyer type of option instead of maybe at number 5 or top of round 2. We'll see. Hey, John, you know what time it is?
It's Terrell time.
It is Terrell time. Terrell joining us on the OBI line. Terrell, how you doing, bud?
How y'all guys doing, man? It's always a pleasure just talking football with you. Some real good guys that just trying to bring our team to glory, and we got a couple things that we're gonna come together, especially with the new uniforms and hopefully the Ring of Honor. But I heard y'all talking about just where everybody was trying to keep who we gonna keep, who we gonna lose. But I want to do a sign and trade with William Jackson and try to get Gilmore from New England. And give them the 5th pick, and we'll get a 9th or 10th pick, and see and just follow along like that, and then hopefully we get Tony. Everybody's saying we get Tony because he's from Dayton, but hopefully we get him. I think he is gonna cut Bobby Hart or somebody. They got a lot of money, but that we really don't need, and they definitely gonna get cut. But I think it is gonna be Bobby Hart. I hope it ain't Gio, but that's my hope. But other than that, man, I just hope that Burrow come back, man. That's my only word. And I just wish Mason run the ball, man. Don't be dancing around. And
Hey, Terrell, did you happen to read the article by Elizabeth Blackburn? And if so, what'd you think? Just quickly.
Oh, it's beautiful. The thing I do like about it is, and I was just talking to somebody at work about this. Mike Brown is finally letting his kids and his grandkids and the new age and the new generation just you know what I mean, fill him up before it's over. And I really do hope that we at least get to the championship before.
Well, hopefully. I know Mike Brown wants that. Well, thanks for calling in, Terrell. Always good hearing from you, bud. Take care, and we'll talk to you soon.
Same here.
All right, take it easy. I guess his main question or comment was kind of the sign and trade situation with William Jackson. As much as that kind of would be fun and a little bit Madden-esque, I don't know that that's a very realistic option, and that's just not something. The Bengals may be more aggressive than they usually are in free agency. I don't know that they're going to do the sign trade and all this shell game going on. That's just that seems to be a little bit outside of their wheelhouse to me personally. I
don't even know. I think the NFL denied the Saints from doing a sign and trade with Jadeveon Clowney last year. And it's that's the difference between the NBA and the NFL. You see sometimes sign and trades in other leagues, and you just don't really see that in the NFL. And especially with a team like New England, the whole reason why I think they are shopping Stephon Gilmore is because even though Gilmore is a good player, he's I think 30, 31 now, and his best days are probably behind him. And I don't see them looking at William Jackson and thinking to themselves yeah, this guy has a lot more upside and a lot more years left in the tank when he's almost the same age as him and not as good of a player. So it's an interesting thought, but I don't really know if it really applies with these two teams and in this league.
Yeah. But I'm going to let you choose where we go next, John. Before we do, I'm an idiot because I did not let everyone know how to get in touch with us at the beginning of the show. So you can call or text 949-542-6241. You can email us, the obinsider@gmail.com, tweet at us at Bengals OBI, or John or I, if you follow us on Twitter, you can tweet questions at us. We've got live chats going in the Facebook page, the Cincy Jungle Facebook page stream, the YouTube live stream, as well as on the post on cincyjungle.com. I think that covers it. So if for some reason you did not know how to get in touch with us and you want to submit a question, get at us one of those variety of ways.
So we had a question from AI in the YouTube chat. He's asking, any chance the Bengals trade back for a guy like Caleb Farley? Personally, he's my favorite cornerback in the draft. So let's talk about like just trading back in general. I don't think teams trade back for specific players in mind. Like they have obviously a list of candidates or prospects that they deem worthy of a pick in whatever part of the round that they're in. But Caleb Farley, he's a cornerback from Virginia Tech. He opted out of the previous college football season because he knows he's going to be a first-round pick and he's that good. I think he's the consensus best cornerback in this draft, I guess, along with Patrick Surtain of Alabama. But I feel like Farley would be a definite option. Say they let go of William Jackson. They don't seriously replace him in free agency. And they're in, I guess, that 7 to 10 pick range where one of those teams like the Panthers or the Broncos or whoever would want to trade up in front of Philadelphia to get a quarterback. Farley, I guess, is an option that they could probably consider if they don't want to take one of the offensive tackles who isn't Penei Sewell, but Farley would be, I think, a name to remember if they go down that path. I don't think they would like trade back specifically for him because I don't know if teams really do that, but he's a guy to remember.
Yeah, and this ties into another email we got from Patrick Esther talking about if Pitts and Sewell are off the board at 5 with so many quarterbacks, do you move back or stay put if you're the Bengals? So it kind of ties in a little bit. Again, depends on free agency. That's going to dictate a lot of where the Bengals go in the draft. And then, of course, who does go in front of them when they sit at number 5. I wouldn't rule out cornerback. The thing is, John, is this team really liked to pick. What would they have? 3 first-round cornerbacks in a matter of 7 years or something between Leon Hall, Jonathan Joseph. You had William Jackson in there. So I mean, they love their first-round Darqueze Dennard. So I guess that's 4. They love first-round corners. However, that was in the Marvin Lewis era. Defensive-minded head coach. So it would be interesting to see if some of these big offensive names are off the board at number 5, if the offensive-minded head coach still wants to try and get that offense moving in a specific direction, whether that's offensive line, maybe it's a Rashawn Slater move back or what have you. Maybe it's another wide receiver, one of the Alabama guys. I don't know. Or if he says, you know what, we're just going to kind of continue to stockpile the defense because we maybe lost William Jackson and then injuries hit us particularly hard on that side of the ball last year. I don't know. Interestingly enough, for those who like and respect Daniel Jeremiah as I do, Caleb Farley was in his top 5 overall prospects as of, I believe, earlier this week. Top 5 overall prospects in this year's class. He did not have Penei Sewell. He did not have Rashawn Slater. He had Kyle Pitts. He had a couple of the quarterbacks in there. But Caleb Farley, that was not. I mean, I knew he was very, very talented. To me, it was just like, oh, that's in his top 5. You're so used to thinking about offensive linemen and such. So. I don't know. I'm kind of with you, though. If they lose William Jackson and Mackenzie Alexander, they may say all of a sudden, man, we need a corner. I know Farley's not a slot guy and Mackenzie Alexander is, but they're going to need bodies there. So that may be where they go. What else are we seeing? Oh, I saw one from our buddy Andre Parada in the live Twitter chat. Is Billy Price salvageable? With Pollock being back, the offensive line coach when Price was drafted, is there hope? And again, catch our episode with Andre talking salary cap and free agency with him. Really interesting stuff. Great guy and a very intelligent Bengals fan there. So what do you think? You've interviewed Billy Price. We had that on our show a while back. Sharp guy, very personable. We'd love to have him on the show again, but obviously his career has not gone anywhere close to where we all hoped.
Is he salvageable? Like, as a quality of center that you would expect in the first round? Probably not. He's like 24, 25 at this point. That would be unlikely. But as a solid starter, maybe. I think, like looking back at what he did in 2018 when Frank Pollock was here, I think that season looked better in hindsight than it did when it actually happened because there was these high expectations for Price that year. But I think if you compare Price in 2018 to the last 2 years, I think Pollock did actually do some good things with him, and he's only regressed ever since then. And, it sucks because a team labels you as a first round guy and you're thrusted into a starting position that you may not be ready or qualified for. And that's really what happened with Billy Price. I don't think he's a bad person by any means. I think he's a great dude. I talked with him. I think he's got a great work ethic too. But that's the nature of this. If you are selected in a place where you're expected to be a high quality starter and you just may not be talented enough yet or just physically gifted enough to really fulfill those expectations, you're going to be looked at as a bust. But I don't think he's a bust mentally or anything. I think being reunited with the coach that was here originally can help him out. But also, we had a question about Trey Hopkins, and according to Tyler Dragon of the Cincinnati Enquirer, he talked with Hopkins, and he said that Hopkins will be ready to return for training camp, which is kind of surprising because he tore his ACL in January, and that'll be an interesting competition if Hopkins isn't maybe quite 100%. I'm sure Price will definitely get opportunities, and it'll be interesting to see what he can do in his last year, but I don't know if he's salvageable to the point where he becomes worth that first round pick. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. And Kelly Villaro, I think, was the one maybe you were referencing in the live YouTube chat about the comment on Hopkins. I think salvageable is a subjective term, and it depends on what you mean. And there's all kinds of variables in that. Part of the equation, along with Billy Price not being able to beat out other guys on the roster, is health. Right? Health. And then, yes, there's the coaching aspect and the scheme aspect. There's also a positional aspect. Is Billy Price a better center or a better guard at the pro level? That's debatable. So, again, and salvageable, is that a solid starter? Is that a spot starter? Is that mean a near Pro Bowl level? It kind of depends on what we're talking about here. I do agree with you in the fact that the team overdrafted him. They kind of were played scramble because they did not have a center really under contract at the time, and they weren't giving Trey Hopkins the time of day at that point. So they wanted to invest in that position because Frank Ragnow got yanked right out from under him, one pick ahead, and so they kind of scrambled there. But I think if there is a time for Billy Price to be salvaged, now is the time, and this year is the time. He's supposedly healthy. He's got a few years under his belt now, and Frank Pollock's back. That seems to be the best equation for him to be able to be productive in this offense.
Agreed.
You want to go next?
Sure. Let's go to Dave Lennox in the YouTube chat. He's asking, you guys have discussed many different offensive linemen like Taylor Moden, Trent Williams, Joe Thuney, etc. What are the team's options if, God forbid, they all get franchise tagged or re-sign with their respective teams? We've talked about a couple of these options in our free agency profiles, but what names kind of stick out to you?
Filer. Matt Filer of the Steelers, not necessarily the sexiest free agent name, but a guy who can do some work at guard, can play potentially at right tackle, knows the AFC North, and, a guy that I just think makes a lot of sense from a value perspective. Again, not a guy that will really move the needle a lot, but I think he could be an upgrade at right tackle and or help you out at guard right away. And so that's one guy. And then I think, unfortunately, then that forces the Bengals. If a lot of these big name guys are off the market, I think some of the trade names we mentioned earlier, Havenstein, Ramczyk, those may come to fruition there. Or, I think the Bengals just may say, hey, you know what, we're going to load up at wide receiver. We're going to load up at other areas in free agency, and then we're going to basically go trenches in the draft.
I agree with all that. I think Moden and Williams, you can count on either. Like Moden, I think is coming back to Carolina. Like they've hinted at franchise tagging him, and they've cleared space to potentially sign him. Trent Williams is going to get a lot of money. I don't think the Bengals are going to shell that much money for a starting tackle. Joe Thuney, I do believe, will be available. I don't think the Patriots are going to tag him again, and they're apparently not even close to a contract. But say they don't go Thuney, say they deem him out of their price range. I think Filer makes a lot of sense because of this one important thing. The Bengals are not going to wait until a draft to cut Bobby Hart. I'm pretty confident that it's not going to be like an Andy Dalton situation. Like they're going to try to maximize the cap space that they can get by cutting Bobby Hart. But they're not going to go into the draft needing a right tackle. Like, it makes sense theoretically to replace Bobby Hart with Penei Sewell, assuming that Sewell's there or just one of the tackles there. Logistically, though, it doesn't make any sense to go through the entire first 3 waves of free agency and not sign at least one guy to just like pencil him in at right tackle. And Filer makes a lot of sense because you can pencil him in at right tackle, but he also has guard experience. He played left guard last year for the Steelers, and you can pencil him in at one of the guard spots if you don't happen to sign a guard and Sewell's available. So Filer, as a guy who has guard and tackle versatility, makes a lot of sense from their perspective because they can still draft Sewell and start him at right tackle, and then they can just move Filer into guard. So Filer seems like the best guard tackle swing type of guy that can be a quality starter that they can sign, and they can still sign him along with a Joe Tooney or whoever else they might sign on the more expensive side of things.
Yeah, and they love that versatility on the offensive line. Sean from Cincinnati asked us in a couple of different ways, I believe text and maybe Twitter as well, or maybe email, I guess. But basically, give me your prediction for the starting offensive line week 1. I mean, I guess if I'll go back to what I said a couple months ago on Twitter, I guess I would go right now. I would go Sewell at left tackle, Tooney at left guard. You've got Hopkins hopefully back. Maybe that's Price, depending on the health situation there at center. I think you've got Quentin Spain. And then I guess you would move Jonah Williams to right tackle at that point.
Man, like I think the 2 spots I'm comfortable. I think they're going to keep Jonah at left tackle. I really do. I think they're going to have one of Hopkins or Price start at center. If Hopkins is fully healthy, I expect him to just take that spot back. I think there's going to be a new starter left guard. Ideally, you would want that to be a Tooney or a Filer. There's going to be a new starter at right tackle. If it's not a guy in free agency, it's probably going to be Sewell. And then, I mean, they should get a new right guard as well because one of Xavier Su'a-Filo or Quinn Spain, that's not their natural position, which is why, like, early in the offseason, that like I talked about, like the guys they have now, they're better fitted for left guards. Yeah. But the guys they can sign, Tooney and Filer, they played left guard, so they have to decide, which potential they want to maximize there. So I think they're only returning two starters from last year, and I think they're staying in their spots. But I have no prediction right now because we haven't even done anything. So I'm assuming 3 new starters, but Hopkins and Williams stay where they are at.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if I swapped, somewhere in that mix, if I swapped out maybe a Quentin Spain or maybe even Sewell for Matt Filer, because we've been talking about him. I just think that there's a fit there in affordability aspect too that works. You see some good stuff here. Mark Young doing some research for us, finished 5th among all right tackles in pass blocking grade in 2019, and then ranked 12th in that same metric among left guards in 2020, talking about Filer. I think it's your turn, but I do want to I'm going to maybe snake you here for a couple, John, if you don't mind, because we've got a couple people asking a similar kind of some similar questions. We've got Robert Obrecht saying, "What's up, guys? Houday for life. Thoughts on linebacker this year, either through the draft or free agency?" And then we had Thomas Bryant on Twitter asking about KJ Wright to the Bengals. I think they did more than enough at the position last year, and they still got a decision to make on Josh Bynes, but maybe another veteran in there somewhere. What do you think?
I think Bynes comes back on a vet minimum type deal, maybe like similar to what he signed last year, and they just go in with Wilson, Pratt, Davis Gaither, hopefully a more healthier and ready to go Marcus Bailey. Like, you don't have to touch that position, which is the first time in, 10 years that you can say that about the linebacker spot. Like, if they find a guy that they like for cheap or like late in the draft, then sure, why not? You're just getting a marginal improvement, but not something that you need to prioritize at all.
Yeah, KJ Wright's he's entering his 11th year. Recently told the Seahawks that he is not going to be taking a, quote, hometown discount. He wants to get paid for everything he's done and who he thinks he still can be, whatever that price tag looks like. I don't think, based on the Bengals investing so much in that position group, particularly in the draft, I don't see them doing much in free agency on that front. Maybe they bring in another body if, I think Jordan Evans is a guy that may be leaving. You mentioned maybe that's where Marcus Bailey ascends to the final roster and sticks there, especially with some better health as a second-year guy, and maybe they just roll with what mostly they had last year. I thought Logan Wilson flashed quite a bit last year. it would be nice to see what he does with increased snaps, and hopefully he's a guy that ends up becoming a solid presence for the defense there. So I don't see much happening at linebacker. I think this year is going to be quite a bit about the trenches and maybe wide receiver corner. What do you want to go next? We'll be here for a couple more minutes.
Let's go with Hude in YouTube comment section. He's asking, can we afford Jesse Bates next year? If we sign Carl Lawson and William Jackson, that would be a lot of money designated for defensive backs. Yes, they can, and you can find out why if you read our article on Cincy Jungle. But essentially, look back to Joe Mixon's extension last year. He signed a $10 million signing bonus. He was given $48 million of new money over 4 years. His cap hit increased by about a couple million just from that signing bonus. Like, typically, the Bengals, they give a lot of they give a year one roster bonus to guys that they extend. They increase their base salary. That they do that in order to minimize future cap hits for what we expect the Bengals to be aggressive in free agency and commit to all this new money. I think if and when they do extend Bates, it's not going to affect the 2021 cap situation as much, which is why they can't afford it. So yeah, they can do that.
Yeah, and they really like to extend some of their who they deem core players. The Jesse Bates extension, if that does come, you would probably expect that to come during summer, right around training camp time. That's usually when they like to kind of put ink to paper on those kind of things. So that's something. And I like you said, I don't think that in years past, that's the excuse that we would hear, right? Oh, they've got too many guys to extend. They've got to. I don't. Based on what we saw last year and what the cash amount they have to spend this year, I don't see that being a viable excuse. I don't see that being a viable excuse going forward. I think they're able to do all of that and still get some outside help, meaning Lawson and Jackson, and extend Bates and get outside help. There's no real reason why they can't do that. Let's move on to, we had a comment in the Cincy Jungle post. Brewer of Doom. What do you think the Bengals do about kicker? They benched Randy Bullock at the end of the year. He missed that crazy field goal in week 1, and it's just, he's had high percentage kicks, but it's all been kind of the shorter distance stuff. The longer distance and crunch time kicks a lot of times are where there are issues. Seemingly, Darren Simmons and company have had enough of Randy Bullock. The other issue, John, is their long snapper, Clark Harris, is an impending free agent as well. Quietly a very important guy. They also have Alex Erickson, another special teams guy that they like. His production's fallen off quite a bit, but still they seem to like him. Darren Simmons does, at least. Lot to take care of in the special teams department, but what do you think they do at kicker?
Randy Bullock's not coming back. I think that's pretty much assumed at this point. I think Austin Seibert sticks around, but he's far from a lock to be the kicker. I don't know what they do in terms of finding him competition. I don't really care. Like, I don't waste time researching kickers before the draft or anything. I'm sure there's guys who can kick, and teams find them all over the draft or just off the street or whatever. Like, they're gonna find another guy to compete with Seibert, and it'll probably be the best man wins, because that's what happened with Bullock and Jake Elliott a few years back, and that ended up being what it was. But Bullock's gone, Seibert's getting competition, best guy wins.
Yeah, I think the Bengals maybe go the undrafted college free agent route, maybe 7th round pick if they take care of a lot of different needs and wants in the draft and free agency. I don't see it being I think Darren Simmons will pound the table to get some help, but like you said, I think they'll roll with Seibert and then maybe get another young guy to compete with him. That's probably where they're headed.
So we had a couple of questions. I think I see one from John Wick. Damn, John Wick's in our chat.
Be careful what you say.
Yeah, asking about Larry Warford. I think Larry Warford was a guy that opted out last year. He was a potential target as a cap casualty from the Saints, if I remember correctly. His value has only probably decreased. He's just gained another year in age, and he hasn't played in a year. But I think as a low-cost option, sure. If they kind of whiff on some of the more prominent names, I think Warford will still be in the conversation. But, it just depends on what his market is, for a guy who hasn't played and He's, I think, now at least 30 years old. It won't be as expensive as it was last year.
Yeah, they were interested in him last year. There was reports that they were interested in him, and then he opted out of the season. A guy who made a few Pro Bowls and is a very good player, but there's a little inconsistencies with I think some of his I'd have to go back and look, but some of his PFF scores and some of the accolades he received. But still, I mean, a upgrade as to what they would have had, and I think that's why when there was no Warford, when they saw Quentin Spain hit the open market, that's where they're going, okay, well, we got to pounce on this guy. So I don't, if he's there, maybe they kick the tires, but it would be, I would assume, just not playing last year, it would be a conditioning type of thing, and or how much are you asking for this time around. We'll see, but let's move on a little bit here, and we'll get out of here in just a couple of minutes, start wrapping this up. There's we can't leave without some Kyle Pitts talk, John. There are a couple of questions. Wayne in Cleveland, I believe this was an email or a text, but why doesn't Zach Taylor value a downfield threat at tight end?
I guess he's never had one. I don't know. I still can't explain the Drew Sample pick. That should have never happened. That was a massive reach on their part. CJ is almost targeted pretty heavily, at least in the first two games with Joe Burrow. And there's, I think, an article on Bengals.com explaining that their rapport is only going to be increased as they rehab together. But I don't know what Zach Taylor prefers. I just know what he's had to deal with and what he's had to work with. And if he gets the opportunity to get a more vertical option there, I don't know why he wouldn't do it. So it's kind of like conjecture almost, and just assuming things that I just don't know.
Yeah, we don't know what we don't know on this one, but it's also, I think, again, kind of to your point, you've never had a guy like that. You've had serviceable guys. You've had, guys that you can do certain things that work well within your offensive scheme, but you never have a guy like this wherein you would intentionally alter your offensive scheme to get him the ball. And so that I think that is, it's kind of at the point of, who goes again in those first four spots. And if Sewell and Jamar Chase are off the board, it's very conceivable the Bengals look this direction. Maybe they move back and they do something different, but it's very conceivable that they look at this guy and just kind of say, look, we've got exciting plans for this kid, and we can do a lot of different things. So, it would be, again, another uncharacteristic type of move or draft selection by this team, but it would be one that I think would and should energize the Bengals fan base, especially depending on what they do in free agency, if they've taken care of a lot of different stuff. So what number do you think he wears? That was another question we got.
84 is available. That's what he wore in college.
Yeah. 84 is 81. 80. I know 85 is not, and I know 83 is not. So anyway, interesting stuff. Any others that we want to wrap up with before we bounce on out of here, John?
I thought you had a call on the line, but
we did, and then we lost him. So I don't know what happened to him or her.
So just real quick, we had a question from Mike Rawson in YouTube. He's asking about Orlando Brown, who wants to get traded. So that whole situation is interesting. Orlando Brown is obviously the son of Orlando Brown Sr., and I think according to Orlando Brown Jr., his father wanted him to always play left tackle. That was a thing that he did in Oklahoma, and he claimed that people doubted him of ever becoming a true left tackle in the NFL. Obviously, he's been a right tackle with the Ravens. He played left tackle for them when Ronnie Stanley, their high-priced left tackle, got injured. He finished the year there. Now they want him to move back because they still have Ronnie Stanley. Orlando Brown says, no, I want to be a left tackle. Trade me. So that whole situation's interesting and kind of unique, but I think they're going to be asking for high compensation, and I don't see the Bengals giving the Ravens an in-division rival high compensation, even if it's a player that they could use.
Agreed. I don't see him landing with the Bengals just from the divisional standpoint. I would think that the Bengals may be interested, but they also have Brian Callahan has recently come out and said he's not keen on moving Jonah Williams around, particularly inside. So, we'll see if that means he's open to moving him to right tackle, but I would assume the Bengals would have some level of interest. I know for sure they would have a level of interest at right tackle, but that's not what he wants. And so, I don't see an interdivision move. And if the Bengals were to get him, I would think that their price tag would be higher than most other teams outside of the division just because of that situation. I don't know for sure, but if I were the Ravens, I would say, well, I'm asking more from you if we're going to face it twice a year again. That's just what I would do. So,
and you know what? Credit to Orlando Brown, who's so much better than what I gave him credit for. Like, he had the worst combine in like my entire memory of it, and I didn't think he was going to be anywhere close to this good. But he landed in a fantastic situation with the Ravens, and he's developed as good as possible. So if he wants more money because left tackles get more money, then good for him. He's earned it.
Yep. It was almost as bad, John, as the infamous Andre Smith Pro Day. That one was an utter disaster. But
good God,
hey, he ended up being a pretty good pro too. I mean, he had a handful of really nice years after a rocky start and everything else with that. But good point with Orlando Brown. Yeah, that workout was yikes. I think that's going to do it unless you see any others that we need to get to here. I'll do one last scroll of the text, but do you see anything else that we need to get to? I see Kevin Zeitler reunion possible if he gets cut. I don't know that happens personally. I think they'd probably go a different direction. Do you see that one taking place?
Yeah, so I think there was someone who asked that to the Athletic guys, and they said, yeah, if Zeitler wants to come back here for the same money, then I don't know why he wouldn't. It's just a matter of if the Bengals see him as a fit. Like, I think the whole thing with Zeitler is that he never really took it personally. He didn't really care. He just wanted to go where if someone wanted him and whoever wanted to pay him the most, and that's kind of what he did. He went to Cleveland with a smile. He got traded to the Giants so they can get OBJ, and he's just been a consistent pro for like eight years now, and I think the Bengals could get 2 more good years out of him.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. I just, I guess I would think that they would just go in a different direction, but
right.
Yeah, I guess it's possible. But that was another text we got. We're going to bounce on out of here. Get this show on iTunes, Stitcher. By the way, if you're a Stitcher person, I mentioned this on another couple of shows, but there is a Cincy Jungle stream and an Orange and Black Insider stream. Be sure that you go to the Cincy Jungle stream. That one is the one that's consistently updated. We've got a couple of notifications from listeners saying, hey, Stitcher isn't updating. You got to make sure you're following and subscribing to the right stream there. But we're also on the Google Podcast app. We are on iHeartRadio. We're on all kinds of different stuff. So download, if you like the audio side of the show, download it on your favorite audio streamer. We're also, all the videos can be found on cincyjungle.com's Facebook page, on their website. All our stuff is on their website. And then, of course, our YouTube channel where you can subscribe. There's a little icon underneath John there. And by the way, that icon we're gonna leave with a tease, John. We may or may not be changing that icon. We may be getting new stripes. #
new stripes for us. Let's go.
Yeah.
No stone left unturned.
Yeah, we may be doing that. So we'll see how that goes. Thanks to an outside source of help, and we'll let you know when we do that. But we're excited about it. Anything else before we bounce on out of here, John? I hope you have a good weekend planned ahead, dude.
I got a great weekend planned of doing nothing in this last weekend of the short month of February. No, this is good. I will talk to you next week, though.
All right, cool. Thanks, John. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Thanks, everybody, for submitting questions. This has been fun. This is Listener Questions Live on the Orange and Black Insider. We'll see you next time.